So that's one of our containers in Liverpool. I'm not planning to talk about what Maersk does in our wider business, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight as to why we've been investing in the green agenda, and then what we've been doing about it, and then finally coming back to that last point, some of the things that we think need being done by regulators and others to help get the investment snowballing from the initial momentum. There we go. So the full supply chain is huge, and that's one half of it, from the factory all the way through to the ship, and then there's another supply chain on the other side that takes it from the ship all the way through. Although that ship might not be a ship, it could be a train, it could be an aircraft, and we're told that 12% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from the full supply chain. So, that is a massive lump. But today I'm only going to talk about Maritime for two reasons. One, because that's what I've been told to talk about, and two, because it's the biggest lump that we can go for in one go. So I see Matt from Freightliners in the audience. I'm going to not talk too much about trains, although I've got a picture of a train at the end, so that's just to keep you happy. So, as we heard from Tim, shipping represents 3% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, which is motivation enough to do something about it. But the company I work for, Maersk, is responsible for 0.1% of the world's emissions. And that is really substantial. And that alone gives us not just the motivation to do something about it, but in fact, the obligation to do something about it. We are very much see ourselves as part of the problem, and so we are putting ourselves in a position where we need to be part of the solution. And that is really why we got started on it. I was just in the conversation break at the beginning talking about our target. Our target to be net zero, in actual fact, is 2040. When we started looking into this in 2018, we set a target of 2050, but over the next couple of 3 years, as we started working through, we found that we believed 2040 would be achievable for us to be net zero across the whole business, not just the maritime, but aviation, trucks, trains, warehouses, whatever else you fancy. And so that's what we're going for. And so to get us there by 2030, we have goals in place which have been ratified and aligned with SBTi as being achievable. And we're delivering on those as we move forward. So tremendous ambition, but in actual fact, we have got serious conviction that they're achievable, and I'm going to take you through in a couple of slides what we've been doing about it. And it links in with what Tim said as well in terms of multi-fuel. Now, where we are today, there pretty much is a single fuel, which is marine diesel. And we see that as a standalone. And many people still say, what is the replacement for diesel? And the answer is there isn't a replacement, there are many replacements. And in actual fact, by the time we get to 2050, certain vessel types will probably still be using diesel. Whether it's a fossil diesel or a biodiesel, there's room for that, and we'll need it. Certain vessel roles, when you talk about warfighting or crisis support, need to be able to burn things that are available, not just what they can pre-program and buy forward as we might do in a liner consortium. So there are many options available, and this will depend on what the role of the vessel is, what the geography of the vessel is working in. If you're an Isle of Wight ferry, electric is probably the absolute super answer, but that then brings us into a whole other question about provision of electricity and power. We'll not go there just now. But it could be right the way through all the hydrogen bases, even to nuclear potentially in the industry. And this is data that came from the Global Maritime Forum and part of the Maersk Mc-Kinney Møller Foundation for net zero shipping. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we'll be using nuclear. What we are looking at, very much what we're moving with at the moment, is methanol. Biomethanol, e-methanol. Why? Well, because unlike the conversation we were just having on ammonia, these fuel technologies are available now, they're scalable now, and we've got vessels in the water now. Ammonia, yes, there have been container ship designs approved by classification societies, but we don't yet have ships in the water. So they will come into the industry probably in before 2030, but they're not available now. Whereas methanol vessels are available now, and we can do something about emissions now. So the picture on the screen just now, the small one at the top is Laura Maersk. She was launched last year. She came to London Gateway in September for the first visit, and she needs about 10,000 tonnes of methanol a year to keep her going. When we ordered that ship in 2021, there was no methanol production for marine, and there was no ships, and nobody was doing either. And we could have been in that, cycle forever if somebody didn't do something about it. So we, with our partners of engine manufacture and shipbuilding, designed and ordered the first ship, and at the same time, we got into joint ventures to produce energy, because energy producers didn't want to do it because there wasn't a market, and we needed to force that market through. So Laura was the first. The next class down in the middle there, we've had the Anna Maersk, now the Astrid Maersk. Astrid was in Koper yesterday, and by the end of this year into the beginning of next year, that class of vessel will have a weekly methanol call in Felixstowe. So we're getting the green corridors going. We've got 25 methanol ships either in the water or in order at the moment, and the industry has about another 175 vessels on order for methanol as well. So the market is coming, and those energy companies who didn't really want to get into it, 5 years ago, are now getting into it. But the scale of what we need just for methanol is huge. And methanol, sadly, will not get us to net zero. With these ships, we'll get hopefully 65 to 70% reduction on emissions, which is a tremendous first step, and will see us through the 20s, but it's not going to get us to net zero. So there is going to be, even in our own fleet, a variety of fuels as we move forward. We've had a biodiesel option for a number of years, methanol now, and we'll see what is coming next. But it won't just be methanol alone, although these ships are doing tremendous work. In 2022, the global production of green methanol was 100,000 tonnes. To deliver the target I showed you earlier on for 2030, Maersk alone will need 5 million tonnes of green methanol by 2030 and about 20 million tonnes by 2040. And if you think back where I said we've got 25 vessels in order, but the industry's got 175, you can then see the scale of green fuel production. We talk about methanol, eventually it could be ammonia, it could be hydrogen, it could be something else. But that scale needs to be done, but it is achievable. We've spoken about provision of electricity in low-cost countries, and from our perspective, to make sure that we've got the fuel that we need for our ships, we've been doing joint ventures and undertakings across the globe to make sure it's being produced in sufficient scale. And we see that by 2030, we will have the fuel that we need for our fleet, and in actual fact, some of those joint ventures will be producing methanol for other fleets. But there is absolutely the opportunity for more investment into this energy and further energies. But new fuels on their own are not enough. And there was a question about ammonia bunkering earlier on. And we need to look across the whole value chain to make sure that everything is being done. And there are opportunities for investment right from feedstock, whether that might be growing kelp in the Irish Sea, or whether it comes from the prairies in North America, or something completely different in China, all the way through every step of the way. Of course, we've heard a lot from Tim about the volume of electricity that's needed. If we were to have a solar farm just to produce our fuel for 2030, it would have to be 2,000 square kilometres. And so we're not going to do that. But our suppliers will have to have the components of that to deliver the fuel that we will be using as we move forward. Engine manufacture, of course, is tremendously important, especially if they're going to have to be dual fueled and do alternative things as well. So that's about why we needed to start doing something. We weren't prepared to sit back and wait because we are so heavily contributing to the problem. Some of the things that I've shown you about is what we're doing, but then bringing me on towards the end is what we need more. And I've got a short video here, which we checked earlier and does work, but I hope it won't blow you away with the noise levels. Just normally you press.
Eight out of 10 things around you come by sea. Shipping moves 11 billion tons of goods yearly and is responsible for 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Today, green fuels are 3 to 4 times more expensive. The only way to change is scaling green fuels production, making them as cheap as fossil fuels. To level the playing field, regulation is essential, and the green balance mechanism can be key. How? Well, the GBM is a technology-agnostic measure that will take the extra cost of green fuels and spread it across fossil fuels, balancing the price out. The GBM will be proportional. The higher the emissions, the higher the fee. The greener the fuel, the more it receives. It will grow progressively as we approach 2050, starting at a lower rate by 2027. Emissions will be measured across the life cycle and not only what comes out of the funnel. So, funding will go to solutions that really address the climate challenge. Policymakers can also add fees for funding IMO RD&D projects and climate mitigation in developing countries and emerging economies, a vital basis for just transition. The GBM is good public policy that will make the price for all types of fuels the same. Now is the time to revolutionize a whole industry and together build a greener future. Let's leave the gray era behind us. With the green balance mechanism, we can do it.
I always like to leave the ship's horn in at the end. So as it says on the screen, this isn't the world according to Maersk, this is the World Shipping Council video. It was presented to IMO MEPC 81, and it's going to be hopefully still on the agenda for MEPC 82 later in the year. But this very much, we are aligned with this view because we believe that if we can help the cost to be balanced, as we were talking about in that last question round, it will allow people to get a return on their investment sooner. If they can get a return on their investment sooner, then they'll be prepared to accelerate investment. And so we believe very strongly that for this to work, as we said before, we need to have parity across the fuels. The fastest way to do that will be some sort of mechanism like this. Doesn't have to be this one, but something like that. And then we can get further investment. The fuel market will become a little bit more competitive. We'll get more entrants into it. There'll be more fuel, and everybody goes home for tea and medals. And then, as promised, a picture of a train for MAD. So yes, I've spoken a lot about maritime, but across the whole value chain, across the whole supply chain, there's many, many more opportunities for investment. And within our business, we're actually involved in greening our whole supply chain, whether it be trucks, trains, ships, aircraft, warehousing, etc. And happy to answer any questions.